Hi everybody, this is Steve Stott, and I'm here with co-host Robin Frobe to bring you Keep the Ghost Light On from the Sherman Playhouse. We've got some great guests for you tonight from all over the spectrum. We've got technical wizards, we've got new upcoming actors, and we've got Dan. No, we've got Dan Friedman, who does everything. Too much for me to even list off. I'm going to hand you over now to Robin, who's going to introduce our first guest. Over to you, Robin.
Hey guys. So Dan Friedman's going to be our first guest. How are you, Dan?
Good, Robin. How are you guys?
Okay. Dan was introduced to me as a director at the Sherman Playhouse for The Underpants by Steve Martin, which we did. Good success, and everybody had a great time. It was a success all around. And he was coming back to do another one, and we got preempted, as it were. And that's one thing, how COVID affected what's going on with you and I and Steve. But Dan, what we do is basically give us a sort of a synopsis of your highlights of your career and where you are now and how COVID has affected you, either positive or negatively or both, and just take it away.
Sure. Okay. Just briefly on my background, I've been working in fundraising and development for the arts in some capacity for longer than I want to admit, probably over 20 years. And I've worked with organizations from mom and pop shops across the country to the Guggenheim Museum and Hollywood Bowl and larger, more well-known established organizations such as that. It was a great experience because I worked for a shop that did kind of like little boutique marketing and development for companies and organizations that didn't have the manpower to do it for themselves. So it was a great education in working with all these different disciplines. And I particularly like to see how everybody put together their packages, their creative packages for their fundraising, for their calendars, whether it was dance or a museum or theater or whatever it may be. And I moved from that to sort of what we used to call the flip side and started working in development and fundraising for other nonprofit organizations. And I worked for a school for a little bit, a school for kids with learning disabilities. And then I got back into the arts probably about 9 years ago, working for the Hudson River Museum in Yonkers, which was a great institution. Been around for over 100 years, really kind of off the radar a little bit. If you're not from the area or from Yonkers or from Westchester, you probably don't even know it exists. We had a lot of people who would drive past it not knowing it was there and stop in to see what was going on. Mostly art from the Hudson River School, but also did a lot of very special exhibitions, about 3 a year, that were very cool. From all, really a variety of different types of art. So if you have an art appreciation, you can really, it's a fun place to work. But my hobby and my passion, my background, since I was a kid, was always in movies and the theater. So I had the opportunity to join the Bedford Playhouse organization about little under 5 years ago, which was in the process of taking the old Bedford Playhouse theater building, which was opened in the late 40s and had been closed. It was operated by Bowtie Cinemas up until about 2013. And if anybody's, I don't know if any of you guys have ever been down that way to that theater, it was a twin cinema, that they had put up a wall. It was originally an old-fashioned 400-seat movie house with a balcony, like back in the day. And then some point in, I think, like the early 80s, they twinned it with no thought to soundproofing or anything like that. So if, God forbid, you're watching Jurassic Park on one side and you're watching Schindler's List on the other, like all you hear is, kaboom, kaboom. It's crazy. But the theater was shut down in 2013. And because it was really, really a great example of the small town movie theater, there was a grassroots campaign started to save it. And with that being launched, the idea was that we were going to renovate and restore it back to not quite what it used to be, but into a more modern facility, but that still had the old-fashioned movie house atmosphere to it. And that was our mission. It was originally, and I have to say that our mission has evolved over time, because the thought originally was that we were going to be an art house and do just, be an art house cinema, because, there are multiplexes in the area. Mount Kisco, which actually just closed due to COVID, has a 5-screen theater that on Main Street that was very popular. So we thought we would just be kind of like the small town movie theater, art house, boutique type movie theater. But we started doing more than that because there was a demand for it. The public was demanding it. And we also became more of a cultural arts center than just a movie theater. So even though we are a movie theater, and we have 3 screens and theaters of different types, you can sit in a big old-fashioned theater. There's a more one that's designed to be like your living room. There's another that's a much smaller 40-seat, very, very intimate theater. We listen to our patrons, and so we do live music, we do live comedy, we do some theatrical performances. We don't really have space for that per se, but we can do certain things. We do author talks. We do a whole variety of programming now that we were never originally intended to do. Like, we never thought that we would show Star Wars or the Avengers or anything like that. But we did, because with 3 screens, you can do that, and you can show the art house films as well. So we always have a good, I should say, when we're operating fully, which I guess we're going to talk about in a second, we would have at any one time an art house film that had been in general release, a wide release first run film, and then we do series on classics and classic films, classic comedies, concert films. There's it's still a very strong movie-based program, but it's not just a movie theater, as we like to talk about. So you were asking a little bit about COVID. So obviously, we relaunched the theater at the end of September in 2018. So literally just about 2 years ago, give or take a week. And very successful. The full, we have a cafe and a bar, which most theaters don't have. So you can come in and you can grab a bite to eat and have a drink, which is a novelty that a lot of people have come to appreciate. And we had a very successful first year of operations, first year plus 3-4 months before March of this year. And when COVID hit, obviously, in the interest of social distancing and being compliant with the rules in New York State, we shut our doors March 15th. And we've been closed since then, in the sense that all of our programming has been closed to the public. We've gone virtual as much as we possibly can. So we do a lot of stuff on Zoom. We do, which has some challenges to it. It has a couple of benefits, but is challenging to do in a virtual setting. And we were able to take advantage of the warm weather and do a lot of outdoor events too. So we did whatever we could do that was either virtual or outdoors, we've done. But in the spirit of community and being that we're all in the same boat, we haven't really been charging very much for anything, and that certainly affects our bottom line. We still, to this day, because we were exempted from phase 4 of New York State's reopening, don't have a solid reopening date. We're ready. We've put everything in place to be fully compliant, but we just need them to tell us, yes, it's okay to go ahead and open. Ironically, our cafe is open on weekends because restaurants were able to open in phase 3. So we can actually have the cafe open and people can come in and sit, they're 6 feet apart, and we can serve people indoors and outdoors, but we can't actually show a movie. So we can host meetings. People could rent out a theater if they want to do a presentation. We can do everything but actually show a movie. Feedback that we get, from the various organizations that we belong to the National Association of Theater Owners and the League of Historic American Theaters, and who have been very active in lobbying the governor to allow us to reopen. And as you guys probably know, movie theaters in Connecticut have been reopened since, I think, June. And we thought, the big thought was that Tenet, everybody was waiting for Tenet to open, and the studios were going to withhold Tenet until they could get the maximum number of eyeballs on it that they possibly could. And Mulan, which Disney was waiting to open Mulan. They've reopened Tenet. Obviously, it didn't do that great. We've been kind of paying attention to the theaters in Connecticut and New Jersey just recently was able to reopen their movie theaters. And the problem really is that there isn't any product. Everything we've been doing has been streaming. We offer, a lot of films. There's a wide variety of them. But the big names, the James Bond movies, your Wonder Woman, all the big name titles are being withheld because the studios want New York and California and Texas and Illinois and Florida to be open before they release those films. So when we take a look, and we work very closely with a lot of theaters in Connecticut that are just over the state line from where we are. And what they tell us is basically the same thing. They've been open and they're not really getting a lot of attendance, not because people are worried about the virus. There's just nothing that they want to see. So not having the product in the market is a big deal for us. We're hoping that's going to change sooner rather than later. There's still, Governor Cuomo has still been, on movie theaters anyway, has been absolutely silent with regard to that. And first it was, they want us to be compliant with the HVAC system. Well, we're compliant with the HVAC system, and they can't get over the idea of people sitting in the same room for 2 hours, potentially, even if we social distance them and operate at 25% capacity, they don't like the idea of people just sitting there. Now, how that's different from a restaurant where you're not wearing your mask because you're eating, I don't know. I don't really know why the distinction. But that's sort of how we've been living life lately. And I have to say that, for the most part, in the early part of our shutdown, our audiences rolled with it. A lot of stuff we were doing virtually was very well attended. But it's hard. It's hard, like if we're showing a film and, we have a talk back, we're forced to send people to Netflix or Amazon Prime or wherever to watch the movie and then congregate online, usually in Zoom, to talk about it. And it's hard to get them to do both. Yes. They're probably watching the movie. If they're diehard fans, they'll tune into the Zoom call and talk about it. But it's not the same as having the conversation, showing the movie in the theater, and then having like a cocktail at the bar afterwards. So our whole operation paradigm has changed.
Absolutely.
So that's our situation kind of in a nutshell right there.
I sympathise. I get a little bit of feedback going on from somewhere. I think it's probably me, but okay, that's a little better. I absolutely sympathise. I was actually at the movies at the weekend on Sunday evening. We went to see the new David Copperfield movie, which is very, very good. But there were 7 of us in the theatre, so 3 groups.
And some theaters, I'm sure, and based on the way the whole system works in terms of studio distribution and the fees that you pay for the licensing, there are some theaters that we know have just not bothered to reopen in Connecticut and New Jersey because at 25% capacity or whatever they're limited to, it's not worth it. It's not worth it for them to be open and paying their staff whatever they pay their staff. If they're not going to at least break even. So that's another challenge.
Yeah, it was definitely a ghost town. It was great to go to the movies again and actually sit in the dark in a movie theater and watch a movie on the big screen. But it's clear, for a start, David Copperfield, may or may not attract a lot of people. It's no big spectacular. So you wouldn't expect a lot of people in that, but in the lobby,
sure,
there were only a few people.
Yeah, and the other challenge is that a lot of these theaters are having to make do with what they call repertory films, classics or second run or whatever. And there's only so many times before the novelty wears off.
Yes.
It's great. We've done it every year, every summer that we've been open. Because we have the Atmos system, surround sound, and we have the biggest screen in the county. As far as I was pretty sure we have the biggest screen in the county. So it's a real experience to sit in that main theater and watch a film that's been recorded and mixed for the Atmos system. And so we've shown Jaws, each summer for the last 2 years. We didn't get to do it this year, but there's only so many times you can watch it. You've probably seen it already. The novelty would be seeing it on the big screen and the surround sound having an effect, but once you've done that, it's not that big a deal if that's all you can do again. So I think that's we're very conscious of offering alternative programming that people might be interested in hearing about. So we've had to get very creative. So we do a lot of a lot of Q&As. We find people who work in have interesting jobs or have worked in fields that most people generally do not work in, like NASA, or we have actually a gentleman who worked in the sea, and we do programs like this one, just like this one, and talk about, well, what does it take to be a NASA astronaut, and what do you study, and how do you get involved? And we find that because that's a little bit of a novelty, people will tune in for that. And if it's, if we have a popular author, if we have something like that that's not film related, people will tune in for that, because you can't just flip, you can't go searching through cable and find the same thing that you could probably watch at home for $3 that you would plunk a $12 ticket to watch in a movie theater.
Yeah.
So it's forced us to be creative.
Yeah, and we're obviously finding the Playhouse, the Sherman Playhouse, that there's virtually nothing we can do. We're looking at all kinds of options, but the main thing is to try and maintain a presence, so that when you're in a position to open up again, you're still relevant, and that you can do it safely and that you can attract people. I would say as well, I suppose one question is, how are you finding the sort of the downtime as an opportunity for planning and reevaluating? Have you had any advantage out of that?
I got to tell you, I find, for whatever reason, that I am far busier working out of my house than I ever was working at the theater. For that very reason, because we've had to use that time that normally would just be overseeing regular operations to start thinking about alternatives. And to your point about staying relevant, that's one of the reasons why we've continued doing some of these programs that we've always been doing, offering them virtually at no charge, even though the numbers are sometimes okay, sometimes not, which would be, honestly, if you're showing a film, you don't know what the public appeal is going to be. You don't necessarily know if it's good or bad. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. So it's the same thing. It depends on the product that you're offering, what the interest in the attendance is going to be. So just to keep our name out there is why we're throwing everything but the kitchen sink out as an option. And if we can do streaming, I will say the one benefit of being virtual versus being live in the theater is that we have access now to people who may be on the other side of the country that we could never get in person in the theater. I mean, we might be able to do a format like this with them on the big screen, but we've had interviews that we've done with screenwriters and directors and other people who are in California or New Mexico or wherever, because they just pop on a Zoom call. So that is the one sort of little bright spot that we've gotten out of this, is that we've had access to people that we would not normally have had access to.
I think Robin can speak to that, can't you?
Yeah, I can. Because I have virtual students. They can come from Wisconsin. They can come from England. Hopefully that'll happen. But and your audience goes up exponentially. I do have a question for Dan. Dan, is your the reason I'm asking this question is that are you still there?
I'm still here.
Dan?
Yep.
Okay. The reason I ask this question is there are some theaters, or there's some organizations that really, if they shut down, it's not a big deal financially, because they may own the building, and they don't, they're not paying for air conditioning, they're not paying for heat or anything like that. So if they shut down, then they just shut down the building. Is this if you don't mind answering this, is this a nonprofit organization that can do that, or do they own the building outright, or is there a mortgage on it and they're frustrated about that?
Well, we are a nonprofit organization, and it's no secret because we fundraise on it. We do not own the building. We have a long-term lease with an option to buy our space. And so we have, on a monthly basis, we've reduced it drastically from when we were operating fully, but we have a significant unrecoverable cost that we must pay out every month, and that's rent, utilities, the various things that you mentioned. So, a lot of our fundraising that we would be doing that normally would have gone towards raising an endowment to purchase the building, which was part of our long-term plan, has really been about offsetting these unrecoverable costs just to keep our doors open. Now, we're not really in danger of shutting down. We have resources that are going to, we think, knock wood, are going to get us through in reasonably good shape. There is a benefit to being a small operation in that respect. I mean, we're not.
Dan, have you seen this happen to other theaters that they had to shut down?
We are aware of a number of sort of independent small town theaters, not quite the same model as ours, that have had to shut down across the country. But particularly, I think, I don't think it's any secret, you're seeing a lot of the large theater chains shut down some of their locations because it's not feasible for them to operate. And as I mentioned, Bowtie Cinemas, which was the owner of our theater before us, the reason they shut down the Bedford location was because they had the Mount Kisco location. Well, the Mount Kisco theater just shut down. And the thing about the Mount Kisco theater, which, you know, I have not been there in many, many years. I understand, you know, it did not have the amenities that we have, but what it did have was a great location. And so while we would get, you know, we do very well. We have very loyal patrons who are of a certain age, usually people with younger kids and older people. That prime, you know, 18 to 35 demographic that everybody wants to get would go to Mount Kisco, because in Mount Kisco you have all the restaurants and bars right there on the street. Obviously, during COVID, that's less of a factor. But that was more of like a hangout place, kind of like the old multiplex. And when I was a kid, I would hang out at the multiplex with my friends all weekend. You know, we don't get that, but, you know, again, not to take advantage of anyone else's misfortune, but the fact that that theater is closed probably means if we can hang on, we will reap some of that business in our space.
Yeah.
You know, when we opened, I don't think it wasn't it was when we did the last Avengers movie. We sold out. We've never had, that's by far the biggest selling film we've ever had in our main theater, which is 160 seats. And we were selling out show after show after show. And we realized it was because we were getting all the people who couldn't get into Mount Kisco because Mount Kisco was sold out.
Yep.
So they were coming to us as the next best thing in that age group primarily. So, you know, again, they had no problem coming to us if they couldn't get in there. Now that they really can't get in there, we're assuming some of that business is going to come back to us when we were able to reopen.
Yeah, it's a silver lining. You know, it's an ill wind that blows no one any good.
Kind of the way you have to look at it, right?
Absolutely, and really, to Robin's point, I think Bethel, the little cinema in Bethel, has gone now.
Yes.
You know, that couldn't.
It's a shame, and you know, I think you know, I will say this, that for the most part, the studios tried. There was a whole big fear when the shutdown first happened that people were going to get used to streaming and video on demand, and that movie theaters would be dead in the water. Nobody would ever come back because people would get used to that. And the studios, I have to say, really did not want to go down that road. One, because they don't make as much money streaming as they do from people buying tickets to a movie theater. But also, I think they realized that people sometimes just want to get out of their house, especially now. People want to get out of their house, but you know, even then, you don't want to just be sitting in front of the same screen and, you know, in your living room day after day after day. That's why we have to try to make it an experience, and we have the you know, the state-of-the-art equipment and the amenities to try and make it an experience, so that it's worth your time to come out, and however far you're willing to travel. I mean, sometimes we get people who come to us from some distance away, surprisingly, because we may be showing something that they just can't find anywhere in their area. So every now and then you see someone pop up who is coming from, you know, outside of Albany, and you go, how the heck are they coming all the way down here just to go to a movie? And it's because we have a title that we're showing that nobody else is showing for whatever reason, usually an art house film. So, you know, we're not planning that. You know, there's nothing we do to reach out to them. We don't assume anything, but some people are willing to go out and spend that time to get the experience. So you have to hope that will rebound when we're able to reopen.
Well, this is something that we've been hearing, and maybe we'll touch on this a little later when we talk as a group, in terms of what the next thing will be based on the innovation that there's an opportunity for now, and how things might change as we go along. But thanks very much, Dan.
Thank you, guys.
Stay on
Will
because we'll keep chatting. So Robin, over to you.
Yeah. So we're going to go to Tommy Hardisty, speaking of cinema. And how are you, Tom?
Doing great, thanks.
Good to see you. We've been chatting about how the Hardisty family is kind of one of the one of the founders of Woodbury, Connecticut.
They've been there a long time, yeah.
Yeah, they've been there a long time. So I think that's so. I mean, I'm a big history guy, and it's a big deal for me. But we went to high school together. As I said, Tommy was the better drummer. I was all set in the back, trying to watch and see what he did better than me, and I never learned. But then I saw you on Facebook, and all of these wonderful credits and great successes that you've had. We only have a few minutes for your highlights of your career, so you're going to have to narrow it down a little bit. Sure. But let us know, how you got in, what the great highlights were, and then how is this, we talked a little bit about this online, but how is this pandemic affecting you, positive, negatively, or both?
Right. Okay. Well, basically, I'm a recordist and staff engineer and the manager at the Eastwood Scoring Stage in Los Angeles, which is Warner Brothers' music scoring lot. Basically, I'm in charge of all technical stuff there. And you had mentioned Tenet and Mulan, and those were actually a couple of the projects that I was recently working on. I was supposed to work on Tenet starting in May, and of course, that didn't happen. Warner's is basically closed. They closed the entire lot, so they have just started opening some productions, and there was talk of us coming back. There's been a lot of demand because people are all of a sudden dying to get product out. We're still in the early phases of the COVID, so there's really nothing going on as far as that goes. It's really closed. So just go back and give you a couple of highlights of my career. I basically came out here to get into record works, being a drummer, but shortly after I came, the record industry really imploded, after Napster and all that stuff. So I got put onto a soundstage, which turned out to be Paramount Pictures. The studio I was working for was leasing Paramount as a film scoring opportunity, but then Chrysalis bought them and closed them. So I was lucky enough to go with a group of people who had just purchased Motown's Hitsville studios, and we were trying to make it into a new studio. One of my career highlights was my first record there was Bruce Springsteen's Human Touch, which turned out to be my first album credit and my first platinum record. I was very fortunate in that being there, I got involved with some of the guys from Steely Dan, Roger Nichols and Walter Becker. So I started doing a bunch of jazz records. But their whole idea there was to kind of push it towards post-production. So I started doing that. The first movie I started working on there was a little film called Beauty and the Beast, which, little did I know that would be 30 years of Disney ahead of me. But I've been, although I work for Warner's, I'm a for-hire engineer with a for-hire facility. So very little of the work that I do is Warner Brothers. Like I said, I've been with Disney for almost 30 years now. It was interesting doing Milan again because I had done the original Milan in 1997. So I was getting to revisit some of my coworkers from 30 years ago, which was really great. And the way this really impacted me was, like I said, it's closed. And most of the work, there's been a lot of labor pressure with musicians lately. So a lot of the work goes out of town now as far as feature films. But that's meant that we do a lot more TV now. So some of the projects I was working on that just completely got halted in March were things like Umbrella Academy and all the Star Treks, the CBS streaming, Picard and Discovery, Family Guy, American Dad, Orville, a lot of the Fox kind of shows. I've been talking to people recently. It's still going on in a different way. Now, instead of having an orchestra, basically they send you a track and each individual person plays on it and sends it back. And then, as you can imagine, it's days and days of editing. so that won't be able to keep up for long because they're weekly episodic TV shows, so you can't be editing a show for 2 weeks. So like I said, I don't think it's going to come back anytime soon. I'm hopeful that it will, but one of my yearly things is typically around this time I start with Disney. The last thing I did was Onward, which brings up another career highlight. Frozen for me was a highlight. It's the only film that came out and I had for the next year friends and family sending me videos of the kids singing Let It Go, which was very interesting. And it was actually the first time I'd ever heard my son sing anything. So it was kind of neat to be part of that. And that's kind of what I do. I'm kind of in a holding pattern. There was some demand from some clients last week for me to get going again, and I talked to the executives at Warner's. And basically they said it's a 15-person limit, and I typically do orchestras anywhere from 70 to 100 people. And it's not really a realistic thing going forward because the requirements that have been placed on us are basically every string player has to have 6 feet distance between them. Every woodwind player has to have 10 feet. Every brass player has to have 12 feet because, people that spit more and have more stuff going into the room are more dangerous. And, really, we have a large size room. We have a room that's 70 by 90 that can fit between 60 and 80. But as you start giving that kind of separation, now all of a sudden I can fit 30 strings, and that's about it. So the way things have changed is now everything is done separately. They'll do strings, then they'll do woodwinds, then they'll do brass. And there's so many restrictions. The piano has to be mineral oiled after every tuning. And there's a lot of things like that have really been imposed on the studios. The musicians impose things on the studios and the clients do, and the studios seem to have the responsibility to do it all. So, because of that, and the liability that goes on there, it's going to be some time. I know Fox has opened up, and Abbey Road and Air in London have opened up, in places like Vienna and Macedonia and Prague. But I understand London's about to go on another shutdown, so that may stop. But like Dan said, there's going to be such a need for content at some point. I just don't think that'll be in the very near future.
One question, Tom. So
go ahead.
Sorry, Robin, just one question. You mentioned other countries opening up, Macedonia, etc. Is that a possibility that you may find? Do you think there's any risk that there may be a permanent shift, or at least a shift for the duration out to countries that aren't shutting down and don't have the restrictions and the controls that
actually that shift has happened already away from us to there because of labor disputes with the musicians, and now it's really a global business. Macedonia and London that has government subsidized healthcare. Our musicians can't compete for they need to charge more because they don't have that, and so it's become very competitive. And I really think that this may actually bring things back towards us because, executives all the time before we're going to London, it's another week vacation in London. And they're not going to want to do that anymore. So, there's a lot of kind of, Zoom or Source Connect location recording. Like they'll record in Macedonia and we'll just be listening to it here.
Yeah.
So that's already happened. So like I said, my hope is that it's going to actually change things back. And that we'll get, more of the stuff back that we've lost.
So, Steve, you have a sec for me to ask?
Yeah, sure, go.
So, Tom, I've asked this of other people in the past, and we had, what was interesting, we had Trans-Siberian Orchestra's founder here last week, Bob Kinkle. And hold on a second, trying to find you. All right. And I don't even know if I asked or somebody else asked, what has happened? That's right. I asked one of the actresses, what is in your, obviously, a lot of people in the business. probably maybe some of the younger ones, or maybe not, did they throw the towel in, or are they just going to keep plugging away? What do you think?
Well, I think as far as individuals, you know, we do this because we got in this business because we love music or whatever it is that we do. So, you know, you're eventually going to have to go towards something else. But, you know, I have no intention of, this is what I wanted to do my whole life, was just do music.
Right.
And yeah, I
Right.
can't enjoy anything else. I think what we're going to lose is the smaller recording studios, you know, the studios that we've known for years as, you know, the band kind of studios, the places that Guns N' Roses are in, and you know, those kind of bands. And they're not going to be able to sustain because they don't have a Warner Brothers, you know, cash cow, you know, to support their stages. They don't own the properties, or, you know, can't pay the staffs. And, you know, it's a very small community that I work in. It seems like Los Angeles is huge, but it's really a small community that's kind of doing the top tier stuff. And we all know each other, and, you know, we all try and support each other. But, you know, it's actually going to become harder because one of the requirements is, of course, less people. So now, like in my booth, you know, where there may have been, you know, 5 engineers, and there may be, you know, 2 producers, a director, you know, film editor, whatever, you know, now that's going to be limited to, you know, 3 engineers and 1 or 2 clients at max. So I think a lot of people are going to have to do something else, you know.
Yeah, and one of the things that, and again, this kind of, I think, feeds in quite nicely to our other guests, is what's likely to happen to the sort of the feed of talent that comes into your industry. You know, is there going to be a fallow period where, you know, in X months or X years, there'll be a gap in the skills?
I definitely think so. Yeah. I mean, yes, I would say already it's such a small community that it's hard to find jobs.
Yeah.
Certainly in the music community, you know, and dubbing and post-production, there's other opportunities, but, you know, most of these people are really specialists at what they do.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I don't hire new hires really, because I need people who have been handling these expensive microphones for 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's already hard to get fresh faces in, but yeah, it'll get harder, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's so that's quite a. I think that's quite a good segue into, you know, to move on from there. So Tom, stay on, because we will talk more. And you know, I think Robin, let's move on. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to go to Gloria, and Gloria knows our other guests much better than I do. So I'll start with Gloria.
Hello.
You there?
Yes, I'm here.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Gloria was a private student of mine. She did do some stuff at Theater Works in New Milford. And then I'm not going to tell you your whole story because you can do that. But tell us how you got into theater, which was actually post your post undergrad, and then how this pandemic may have affected you, positive, negatively. We talked a little about it, but let us all know about that.
Okay. So growing up, my main thing has always been singing. I was a singer before an actor. So I did, you know, community theater but just musicals, and then I went to college, but I really wanted to go to an acting school right out of high school. And you know, I was still underage, so my parents wouldn't let me, and I think they thought it was just a phase, and they made a comment years ago saying, you know, if you finish college and you still want to go to the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York, then you can go. And I don't think they thought that I would want to still do that, but that was my like goal for when I graduated. It was like the golden ticket to get into the Neighborhood Playhouse. And I auditioned with Robin's help. He helped me with Find a Monologue, and we worked on it a lot. And I went into the audition, and it felt like a movie. She accepted me on the spot, and she was like, I never normally do this, but you're in. I usually like will call you or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. And then I wasn't sure if she was just saying that to be nice. And then I told somebody else that worked there at the time, and he was like, wow, she never does that. I'm surprised you already know. So it felt really meant to be, and everything went really smoothly. And I even found an apartment out there really quickly. And before then, my friend was having me sublet her place for half the price. So everything just like really fell into place. And then I graduated. So it was a 2-year program. And I graduated with Midanah in 2018. And then I'm not going to lie, it's been a struggle finishing school, because I've been in school my whole life. So then I was, out in the real world, and it was hard, and I was in the city. So I was at sometimes I'd have 3 jobs, and then also trying to audition, and it was hard. And then before COVID hit, I was on in an off-Broadway musical, which was really cool. And at the same time, I was doing a short film in Connecticut. So I got lucky to experience that before it hit. And then I auditioned for this singing group. It was like a small girl group. And the audition went, I like sang fine, but my zipper broke right before I had to go and audition. And I could not get it up, like, at all. So I walk in, and I'm so awkward, and I'm like, do I tell them? I was like, in my head, and I'm like, screw it, I'm just gonna sing, and hopefully they don't notice. So I left there, and I sang okay, but I was like, I didn't get that. Like, I was so awkward, there's no way. And then he ended up calling me, and I got that. And then I didn't hear from him for a while, because of COVID and everything. And I was like, okay, that's probably not going to happen. And then I want to say in May, early May, or maybe late April, I got a call from him again. And turns out he's really in the music industry, and he has a lot of good connections. I've been working with an artistic director who works with Her, the artist Her. I don't know if you guys know who that is. He used to work with Alicia Keys, Alicia Cara. So it's been really fun, and we've been recording some stuff, and it's been good. And there have been small studios, and it's small gatherings, so we try to be as safe as we can with COVID and stuff. And there's never a lot of people there, so we've been really trying to keep it safe. But that's been my saving grace during this time, because it's been my only outlet creatively. Other than that, it's been a struggle. So
you had to move back to Connecticut, right?
Oh yeah, left that part out. Had to move back to Connecticut. My whole life. It's really funny. I remember it so vividly, because I actually knew about the coronavirus before it even, I knew about it months in advance, because I have a friend, Curtis, who teaches acting in China, and he's been my best friend since we were literally in preschool. We've been best friends. And so he was calling me, and he was telling me all about, what's going on. So I knew about it firsthand, and it wasn't a matter of, if it's going to hit, it was when. So New Yorkers were starting to wear masks, I want to say in like November or something. Like, we knew it was going to hit, and we knew it was going to be bad. And I was working at the gym at the time. So then I started the trend. There were like gloves at the front desk near like the first aid kit. So I started wearing gloves, because everyone was freaking out. They're like, what's going to happen? Are you quitting? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. The subways were nuts. If you coughed, oh my God, people would be like, it was, so you'd like stand there like being like, don't cough. Everyone will stare at you. It was pretty intense. And then I remember March 12th, which is one of my best friend's birthdays. I was supposed to go into Connecticut to see her. And this is when the virus was getting really bad. It just hit New York, like really bad. And I was nervous to take the train, and I'm calling my friend Curtis. I'm calling my dad. I'm like, what do I do? Do I take the train? Do I not? And Curtis is like, well, you got it anyway, so just do it. Wear a mask, wear gloves, whatever. So I packed for the weekend. I packed like 3 outfits, maybe, if that. I packed really light. I get to Connecticut. I end up having to stay there from March 12th until May. with 3 outfits, like rotating, because I thought I was gonna go right back. I had no idea. And then I ended up, everything went, so then I ended up having to stay there till May. And then I had to move back and had to call my landlord and get everything situated. My roommates had to move out too. I had another roommate who I met from the Playhouse. Midanah knows her, Rachel, who's from Tennessee. She had to move back. It was crazy, but.
So Gloria, do you think back when you just graduated Neighborhood Playhouse? We had spoken a bit, and you were auditioning. You were doing as much as you could. Think back to then and think now. Do you feel that now it's impossible to do what you need to do, or do you think it's just as difficult as it was when you got out? Is there any difference at all?
I think it's more difficult. To be honest, that will probably be a better question to ask Midanah, because I haven't been aggressively auditioning at the moment because I'm into this singing group now. So my focus is more on that. And I've just been, like I said, I've been recording with them, and we're doing it as safely as we can.
Right.
So that's been my outlet. But I don't know. I would think it's more difficult now. Maybe there's I know there's like some good coming out of it, where there's like more casting directors that are doing sometimes, depending, like free Zoom classes to give you pointers on things. And so in cases like that, I think it's nice because they're, some people are recognizing, oh, they're artists. They're already struggling to begin with. Let's, help them out. So sometimes, the casting directors coming on and speaking and doing free classes have been helpful. But I don't know. I could imagine it's harder. And even I know our school, the Neighborhood Playhouse, they're switching to teaching Zoom, the technique on Zoom. And I feel for them as well. I mean, that was hard to learn in person. So I can't imagine doing that through Zoom. So my heart goes out for them and people that are just getting into it. I'm fortunate enough to have gone through the Neighborhood Playhouse for the 2 years and got the full experience. Like, I feel so bad for the second years this year who didn't even get to do a showcase. They missed the entire showcase. And even the first years who didn't get that foundation in person, you need that. The Meisner technique is so difficult. I can't even, I don't know. So my heart goes out to them, but they're making it work. It seems like.
Well, I mean,
So.
that's a good term, making it work. And what we have heard, and Tom alluded to that as well, that if this is what you want to do, if this is what you see, how you see your life, you'll find ways to be creative, and you'll find ways to remain in the in that stream, in that path. I guess the older more cynical of us can see how that, there's potentially a limit to how long you can continue in that path before something breaks out. But the
only thing too that, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, that's been helping me get by is to know that, we're kind of all struggling together. So that's the only thing that I'm like, what are we going to cancel all artists? Like, we're kind of in this together, like it's gonna eventually go back. But that's the only thing that's been making me feel better, is like, okay, I'm not alone in this. Like, everyone's being affected. So.
And that's what we're hearing, isn't it, Robin?
Yeah, it is. That's great, Gloria, for you to say that. And you're actually part of the generation that is getting affected the most. So cool. I'm going to go to Midanah, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And is she there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Great
Hi.
to meet you.
Nice to meet
Thanks
you
for coming
too.
on thanks for coming on the last minute. I know you know Gloria from Neighborhood Playhouse, which has been, and I know a few other people. It's been a great experience for them. So tell us some highlights of your career, maybe why you chose the Playhouse to go to, and then I know you've done some short films recently, and you know how you got into those, and how the pandemic has affected you one way or the other.
Okay. Well, a similar story to Gloria. I was in business school. I was doing like fashion marketing, and I just like, I thought I wanted to be like a designer or a buyer or something like that. And then I went to school for it, and I just like wasn't loving it. But my parents were like, you might as well just get something. So I just got like an associate's degree in business. And then did some soul searching, almost wanted to move to like LA and everything like that. But then I came to the Playhouse. I got similar to Gloria, like I interviewed with Pam, and then like either that evening or the next day I found out I got in. And so like I had to redo everything and move to the city in like 2 weeks and not know like anybody in the city or anything like that. And so I was like couch hopping and staying with one of my dad's friends that he grew up with. Thankfully, she like took me in. But yeah, so like after attending the Playhouse, my first like acting program in general, I felt like the training was so good and I knew like what to do and how to do it. But in terms of like the business, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And so once after graduation, I just kind of felt like, what do I do now? And a lot of the girls, Gloria can attest to this, like we're feeling that. And so I was just like talking to people and reading so many articles and trying to figure out what I can do. And I ended up taking a class and was able to get representation. And so that was a blessing, because like being able to get legit auditions helps so much when you're just starting out, because people don't always want to give you a chance when they realize you're new. Yeah. And so that has helped me a lot. And so I've booked like with her, I haven't booked a lot of like legit things, but I've got like legit auditions. And I don't know if it's like, I don't know if you guys have ever been like this in your career, but like you get the legit audition and then like you get callbacks and everything, and you just don't get it and you don't know why. And like, I hate not knowing, you know? But so just trying to navigate that and realize that a lot of the times, as long as I do my best, it's out of my control if I get it. So a lot of my work that I've gotten since graduating has been like collaborating with people who are up and coming as well. People I've graduated with that Gloria knows. I've done some shorts with them and it's done well in the festival circuit. And also I've like written things myself and like shot some things that way, and just trying to stay creative, you know, because it's so hard. So that's like the main thing that I'm trying to do, is like trying to write more. Like since COVID hit, I started taking, like I took a screenwriting class, and to help me be a better writer, you know, because I want to be able to create quality content. If I can't get quality work, like I want to be able to create something on my own. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now, just trying to figure it out. And what you asked Gloria earlier about, like, is it harder? It's definitely gotten harder for me, because I feel like because I'm so new to it, the auditions that my agent is getting me since COVID hit are like small stuff that I could get submitting on Actors Access. So it's like not paying as well, and it's not as critically acclaimed, and not saying it has to be that to get the work, because I love what I do, but I'm saying like I have to build up my resume and I need quality stuff to help me with that. And so it's definitely gotten harder on that, in that light, you know, in that note. So yeah.
So how about taking care of yourself? Are you did you have to get out of the city? Are you doing another job?
Yeah, so in March I moved upstate New York, because I'm from Syracuse, New York. So I moved upstate with my boyfriend, and because his family has a spare house up here, so we came up here. And then I ended up going down south to Alabama, because my family is from there. That's where I did high school, so they're from there. So I went down there for a couple months, and now I'm back in this area, because like I feel like things are opening up a little bit more. And I also started trying to do more commercial and voiceover work, because that's what's really being cast right now. Like, it's not a lot of TV film,
Yep.
it's not a lot of theater, but it is a lot of commercial and voiceover work. So I'm honestly not thankfully that COVID happened, but it's allowed me to be able to train in something that I've wanted to do and didn't have the time, because working dead-end jobs, like Gloria says, and just not having the time to do that. And so thankfully now I have had time. All we have is time. So just doing that.
We've heard that again and again, and that in a sense has been one of the most positive things we've heard. That there's been some time for reflection, as Dan has found. He's busier than ever as they figure out their way through all this and come up with ideas. We've heard from actors, we've heard from directors, we've heard from writers, how they're using this time to create. We had musicians and singers who are really in the same position as Gloria, where they have a network, which then means that they can continue to create. How are you finding that sort of network of fellow performers and people in the industry? Do you feel that there's a lot of support and a lot of appreciation from
honestly, I started taking more like classes as well during this time with like casting directors and other fellow actors, and just like the way that the classes are run are so different than what it was before. It's like the casting directors are actually looking at you like a person instead of just like another person that's coming into their class and they just here for a check kind of deal. It's so much more of like the human connection, and I feel like they actually care about the feedback that they're giving you, because they want that, like they have so much time on their hands that they can actually do that in this moment. They can listen to you and give you positive feedback, and just like the other actors just being there for each other and like saying good work and actually meaning it, you know what I mean? Like that is something that has been nice to feel, especially during this time where it's so easy to feel alone. Because I have my friends from the Playhouse that are acting, but we're all in different states and countries now. So we're not as close. And so like it's very easy to feel like alone, but in that case, I'm like thankful that being able to take classes and still connect and create and work still has helped me a lot, honestly.
Oh, that's really great to hear.
Yeah. Just a question for Gloria and Midanah, if they can be unmuted. Have you guys know a lot of the same people? Were there any of the actors from Neighborhood Playhouse that did move out of the country into another country that is thriving in their career that you know of?
Yeah, we have a friend from Portugal and she's a singer as well, like Gloria. She started out singing more and she came to the Playhouse and she just won the voice for Portugal.
Wow.
So she's like thriving as a singer.
But even with her, I feel like she got the short end of the stick because she just won and then COVID hit. So she would be getting so many opportunities that she isn't because of COVID. Like, I don't know, I haven't talked to her, but usually when you win something like that, you tour, you're doing shows a lot, at least within the first year, because you're signed under them and they help you. And I don't know too much about it, but just from like American Idol and stuff, you are able to, they help you, they connect you, they give you performing opportunities, because she won and she wasn't, I don't know, I feel like
she probably will be able to record in Portugal.
Yeah, I think she's still doing, I haven't talked to her.
She's doing music like on the side writing her first like hits and things like that, but but you can't release it because like the song that she wrote, the times that are happening right now, it just wouldn't be good to release it right now.
Interesting.
And so yeah, so that's like one of the things she's had to deal with, like waiting to release her single and stuff. So
I mean, that's an interesting point. And Tom, your involvement is largely with film and TV. Do you still get involved much with production for bands and recording artists?
Not really, because I have such a large space and it's very expensive. So if you have a band or something, you can certainly find another more affordable facility. Now that of course
I'm just thinking how they how the likes of the big music shows, the big talent shows, are coping with exactly what you say. You can put a show out, but what happens afterwards? I mean, I'm not particularly au fait with the music industry, but it would seem to me that a lot of success is based on taking advantage of the moment.
Yeah.
In music, so.
Well, since it's such a collaborative thing, a lot like the actors and stuff, you just can't get people together safely, and people who are together aren't comfortable being together yet. So and something else that I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, and they had been working with an orchestra at Fox, and he said basically since everyone's so far apart, he said it's the first time after a take people aren't talking. Everyone's so far apart, but there's also no collaboration. This string player is not talking to the concert master and saying, what's your articulation here? So, it's not even really a workable thing at this point.
Yeah, yes, I could understand that. You can see a certain amount of creativity that can come out of remote collaboration for performance, for acting performance.
Right.
Because you have to work in that situation, and you also have to be immediate with the person that you are acting against.
Yeah.
You've got to make that work. But I can see exactly what you mean about musicians. And
you have to be close enough to the musician that you can hear his tuning, so that you're playing, to the same tuning. Especially if you're a violinist, or a lot of it is about hearing what's happening next to you.
Yeah. And that's not something that you can fix when it gets to you.
Well, you can fix an individual instrument. Can you fix, a section of 40 strings? Yes, you can with Midanah stuff, but it's, it's just more time consuming, of course.
Yeah.
These days, you can fix almost anything. I've worked with Whoopi Goldberg. I know you can fix almost anything.
Ooh! I hope Whoopi's watching this. If we can get her on here, that'd be good.
This is when the show takes off. This is when we take off.
This is when we take off. Bit of controversy.
Here we go.
There we go. So what I'd like to just throw out there as well now is Dan and Tom. Any sage words of wisdom from the more mature members on the call? I'm immature, so I won't comment. But for people starting out in their careers, whether it's Gloria and Midanah in their acting careers, or just in general in this at this time, any words of wisdom?
Well, for me, it's figure out what you want to do and try and, if you're new to something, do your best to become masterful at it before you're approached with a situation where you have to do it. And that can only be a good thing, to be more prepared,
And I think in addition to that, that's absolutely right. And, I don't know if I'm going to get the exact saying right, but, there's they say that you need to put in so many hours before you become an expert in the field that you're working in. And I don't remember what the number is specifically.
10,000.
Is it 10,000? I think it's 10,000. And not that sounds intimidating, but
I'm almost there.
I think the thing I've learned is there's a difference between being being selective about what you want to do and taking advantage of opportunities that are presented to you. I learned very early on, try not to say no as often as you can, even if it seems like something that, I don't want to say beneath you, but if it seems like something that you wouldn't be interested in, consider it anyway, because you never know. You really, really never know who's watching or paying attention. And if I've learned anything just in the last 2 years of what I do, is that you really don't know who's paying attention, because we have a lot of, in the area that the theater is located, there are a lot of celebrities who live in that area, and they may come in as just themselves. They're not, they don't come in. They're residents of the town, and we're their local movie theater, and they're coming in with their kids to see Mary Poppins or whatever it may be, and they look around and they pay attention and they see what we do, and they see what we do in addition to movies. And we've had some of them are very private, but some of them come up to us and say, hey, how do I get involved? And that's nothing we planned, nothing that we ever said was we're going to try. We knew they lived in the area. We thought at some point it would be nice if somehow it worked out, and they came to us. And so I think that the lesson from that is just never assume that someone is not looking at something that you're doing who you would never expect to be looking at it and not paying attention to you.
And you're right, Dan, because someone who works in Hollywood, no is not an answer, because there's always someone else who will say yes. So
Right.
no is never an acceptable answer.
Yeah, and right now, with I guess with the opportunity of, as it were, the opportunity to take the time to work out what you want to do. You've got the opportunity there. You've also got the opportunity to try things, try new things, because you may only have new things. The opportunity, the range of opportunities in the area that you wish to specialize in may just not be there. That goes for everybody on the call to a certain extent. I'm sure, at some point, Tom, there'll be new things that you will need to look at, just in the way that you do work. And Dan, sounds like that's what your life is at the moment, is looking around at the new opportunities.
They're going to be reinventing, because there has to be, right? Things aren't going to be, even when they get back to normal, they're going to be different.
Yeah.
So there's definitely reinventing. And, all of us have a lot of different skills. You might not recognize what they are, but, they'll come out of you,
Yeah.
What I found out also, and I've talked to a lot of people, is working from home is comfortable. It's extremely comfortable.
Yeah.
It's, you get to do a lot of comfort.
Yes.
And, and it's like, do they want to go back into the rat race? But that's a lot of people that are not in the performing arts industry. And
that's very true. I have an hour and a half commute each day. Do you think I miss that?
Yeah.
And then a 14 or 16 hour day after that? I don't.
Yeah.
Do I want to go back to work? Yes, of course I do.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
The muscle memory that you get, you lose from working from home, is you don't realize it until you actually start. I've been going back into the theater to do some work a couple of days a week, and it literally is muscle memory. I'm not used to, getting in my car, walking up the stairs, sitting at my desk. I'm finding that, I'm used to a whole different set of activities now. And it's going to take some readjustment. And like Tom said, I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, but I think there is a little bit of a glimmer of hope on the horizon that if we can manage, we'll find other ways to deal with it until we can get back to normal. Like we'll maintain the status quo, hopefully. I see that happening a little bit. I'm a little more optimistic about that than I was maybe a month ago. We can maintain.
Yeah, that's what we're finding, and I think we all hope it will return to some semblance of normal. But what that normal is going to be is a little bit unknown at the moment. But
Andy, can you imagine this happening 40 years ago, where there was no internet, you know,
Yeah.
we can't, you know, what could you do? What could you do?
Yeah,
You know?
where would your network go? Where would your network of contacts and people
Massive
you keep in touch
hibernation.
with? Absolutely, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
no, as I said at the start, we are hearing overwhelmingly positive sort of sounds about what's going on. People are finding their way through. You know, again, we have to see what the next few months brings as we get into winter and we can't sit outside restaurants anymore, and you know, we can't do that kind of stuff. I was away last weekend up in Massachusetts when the weather changed from lovely warm evenings to bitterly cold, sitting outside an Italian restaurant in shirt sleeves, shivering away because I hadn't brought a sweater, eating cold chicken parmesan. But so, you know, we're moving into a different time. One of the things I'd hoped that we might talk about on this call, but we've kind of, you know, we're at the end of the call now, so it'd be great to have people back. Was really the opportunity for addressing some of the performing arts outstanding problems. You know, diversity, you know, inclusion, you know, the Me Too movement, you know, all the stuff that that was bubbling along before COVID hit and came to a head in different areas, and just how we feel that's going to happen, you know, how that's going to be affected as we go through this. But we've run out of time, but we've got loads more to talk about. So what we've asked our previous guests is, you know, we'd love you to come back, either to watch our shows or to come back and be guests again, as we see how things develop. And we will be having some returning guests coming through, I think from late October into November, and we'll see how some of those people have got on.
Yeah, we're I'm booking for November, and if anybody has any friends that want to come on, I don't know, from Portugal or, you know, places like that.
we're looking to do some specialist
right.
shows as well. We had a very good show a couple of weeks back with some very technical guys, and we could have talked all night. In fact, we went way over time. So we're gonna have a technical specialist show. It'd be great to have one that is related to movies and the movie industry, you know, a music related show as well, where we get musicians and people involved in the music industry as well, and you know, some strictly sort of stage performance show people on there as well. So, you know, we're looking at ways that we can broaden this conversation as well.
And I'm hoping if Gloria does come back, she has better outfits. There's more choice in outfits.
Oh, okay.
She's able to go to a mall.
Yeah, and she can get stuff where the zipper works. That'll be even better. Yeah.
That's what we're about.
I mean, I have to say, your headshots, Gloria and Midanah, your headshots are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely
thank you.
phenomenal. Yeah,
we went to the same person.
Yeah, the sort of gigawatt smile we've got from Midanah and Gloria. Your eyes, you're like 70% eyes, which is great. I'm very impressed with those. And Dan, yours has aged well. So,
yeah, you know,
it's a fine wine.
So anyway, with that we'll bring things to a close. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
And it's been a great night, and have a good evening, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Stay safe.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye bye now.
Bye.